We are joined by an esteemed member of the academic community that disputes the official version of 9/11, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth's own Richard Gage, and I believe they have a new DVD series out that's more palatable for people's interest levels, a 10-minute version, 30-minute version, and 60-minute version. We're going to tell you how you can get that. And on top of that, he's touring the country explaining the controlled demolitions of 1, 2, and 7. And a large part of that has now been scientifically proven with this new paper that found unexploded thermite particles in the dust. Is that not correct, Richard?
It is, and it's an unfortunate reality, Jason. Good to see you tonight.
Yes, it's been too long. It's been quite some time since I've talked to you. I know I've met you on several occasions. You are a true, pioneer in this movement. You've dedicated so much to, again, exposing the truth about 9/11. You often, tour, give lectures, and now we have this new paper out. I was unable to, I got a hold of Kevin Ryan and tried to get him and Stephen Jones on. I haven't been able to do so. Love to talk to them in the future. But why don't you give the people out there just a synopsis of what this paper says and what the implications are?
Sure. It's rather devastating for the official story. First of all, I've been an architect for 20 years, and I have never seen anything like the collapse of these three high-rises. Of course, no one really has. The Twin Towers, which were very explosive events. Mm-hmm. And so we're all wondering, well, what gave rise to this? It doesn't look like a gravitational collapse at all, which, of course, due to the official story, tells us that we're talking about jet plane impacts, explosions with jet fuel, fire, intense fires, weakening of structural steel, and then a gravitational collapse down to the ground. And it never made any sense to a whole lot of people. And the rest of us just didn't want to think about it, and not until 3 years ago, till I heard David Ray Griffin on the radio talking about the explosive features of these towers, did I give it a second thought. Well, just last couple of weeks ago, we have a peer-reviewed paper in the Bentham Open Chemical Physics Journal, a 25-page paper which documents the ingredients in the dust, which was ubiquitous throughout the lower Manhattan, 4-6 inches thick, all of this dust. Well, a long, long time ago, Dr. Jones started looking at it. Stephen Jones, a professor formerly from Brigham Young University, a physics professor, he finds the strangest materials in this dust. First of all, he finds these spheres, which are previously molten iron, and they're
let's
very
talk
tiny.
about those moltenized iron spheres in a moment, Richard. We gotta take a break right now. We're gonna come back in about 3 minutes. I want to talk about the moltenized iron spheres, Stephen Jones's research, and so much more with Richard Gage. Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth is the website. We'll be back after this. Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv. We are back. It's the Inforwarrior with Jason Bermas, and before we go back to the guest, I want to remind people, Fabled Enemies is on the front of Google Video right now, my latest picture if you want to watch it for free, or you can go over to the Infowars shop, pick it up, and support what we do here. Again, on the top videos, it's pretty amazing. They've blocked me before, they've pulled it before, but for some reason today, it's in the top 10. So go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Fabled Enemies is the movie. Now, Richard, you were just discussing these spheres of molten metal that were found in the World Trade Center dust that Stephen Jones really started looking at that in 2005, I believe?
Yeah, it's quite damning to the official story, because this is previously molten metal. Dr. Jones estimates that there must have been at least 10 tons of these previously molten iron spheres. And it's molten iron. I mean, it's not structural steel that's been melted somehow. It's iron, and it's got the evidence, chemical evidence in it, the chemical traces of thermite, an incendiary used to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter. It has traces of sulfur, fluorine, manganese, aluminum, iron oxide, oxygen. These are the elements of the chemical evidence of thermite. This is very damning. So he says, well, what could have created all of these spheres? It could only have happened in an aluminothermic event, thousands of them under intense pressure like explosives, which would have atomized the byproduct of thermite, which is molten iron, and sending it into all all directions, very tiny droplets in spheres, because the surface tension of a liquid in an atomized form does just that. It forms itself into a sphere. So he takes the next step, and he asks, well, what would be the mixed ingredients of the pre-ignited form of the sphere, and would we find any of that in the dust? Well, he concludes it would have had to have been potassium permanganate, iron oxide powders, aluminum powders, and these other more rare chemicals that are found. And he says, well, let's see if we can find any of them. So sure enough, about I guess it was a year and a half ago or so, he finds unignited chips in every sample of thermite, in every sample of the dust that he had. And he had 4 samples at the time and many more since then. So he's now published this in a peer-reviewed paper. It's unignited thermite chips. Some of them are very, very small. I think the largest one is about a 1/16 of an inch long. It's red on one side, gray on the other. The gray side appears to be some sort of binder. The red side is composed of extremely small particles of iron oxide, aluminum, and the related chemicals that are found with it, fluorine, manganese, and sulfur in some cases. And this is these particles are so small that we're talking about a thousandth the size of a human hair, the width of a human hair. These are nanoparticles. This stuff is not made in a cave in Afghanistan.
Are you telling me that there is actual evidence that it wasn't made in a cave in Afghanistan? That just sounds like a conspiracy theory, Richard. I can't buy that. Now, there's been a whole lot of controversy over this paper as well. Someone actually resigned over it being published, correct?
Yeah, in fact, I believe it was the editor-in-chief, and there is no, from what I hear, there is no scientific analysis given, or the specific problem that she had was
no, it's just
really
a blanket statement. I don't like what you guys are saying. Yeah, I mean, it's a blanket statement. I don't like what you guys are having to say. I'm going to resign. She gave no scientific evidence to try to refute the paperwork. Now, I mean, how much more do you think that we have to do to prove that this indeed was a controlled demolition? We now have yet another peer-reviewed paper by Stephen Jones being published. He's proved that the molten metal that was coming out of the World Trade Center prior to its collapse was not aluminum from the plane, as the debunkers so love to spout. I mean, you literally see this hot, molten, either steel or iron, or perhaps a mix of both, coming down like a foundry 20, 40, and 60 floors below before it really starts to dissipate. You know, you have FEMA on record, Ken Holden and others, talking about pools of molten metal under 1, 2, 7, and 6. And you have recorded temperatures of over 2,000 degrees there. What more is it going to take for people to open their eyes?
Well, unfortunately, it's not the evidence. Once we get the architects and engineers in front of the evidence, as you have been highlighting here for me, they see it. In fact, we had a booth at the American Institute of Architects 2 weeks ago, and we had hundreds of architects come by, and we gave out hundreds of DVDs and brochures. Guess what? 50 of them signed our petition, agreeing. Once they saw Building 7 coming down, for instance, they agreed, hey, that's a controlled demolition. Fire doesn't do that to buildings. Fire doesn't take out the core columns, all of them, within a tenth of a second of each other on each floor, synchronistically timed, which is what is required in order to bring a building straight down into its own footprint in just at basically free fall acceleration. This doesn't happen by fire. Never has, never will. Architects, engineers, and others understand this. So we were delighted to have actually 60 architects sign the petition. We're verifying them now. We'll have over 700 architects and engineers demanding a real investigation, and we're going to take that to Congress in October. We're very excited.
Well, that is exciting.
We're going to be going
news.
to many other conventions, hopefully starting in July, and we've been invited to have a free booth in Virginia.
Excellent.
At the American Institute of Architects convention there, as well as a speaking opportunity.
That's great news, Richard. Where can people find the DVDs, find the information, find out where they can support you, maybe turn their architect and